back around May of 2019, a couple of future draft picks posted stories or videos on their Instagram accounts that showed them signing some Chromium cards. Two players specifically that I remember, we had Tyler Hero and Jalen Hands. And I think later on we saw some on an ESPN show, actually, from Jackson Hayes. Well, these were Chromium cards, but they definitely weren't Prism. And if you paused the videos or looked close at the pictures, you could make out a Topps Chrome logo on them. And it was very clear. I mean, you weren't going to mistake that for anything else. And that got a lot of people talking, obviously, because we hadn't seen Topps Chrome basketball since 2009, 2010. So, in addition to just miscellaneous chatter here and there, it got some mainstream attention. You had Blowout posted an article, Beckett posted an article, but Topps would not comment at the time. And it left a lot of people trying to speculate what would happen, myself included. My guess was that they were trying to sign Zion to an exclusive and make some noise with the set. Obviously that would be a big hit if they could get Zion, jump back into the basketball game even with an unlicensed product. Even if it ended up in a baseball product like Allen and Ginter, that would be a huge incentive for non-baseball people to rip that product. But we didn't know. And if you'll remember, I emailed Topps in June and talked about it on this show, and 2 months later they got back to me. But there wasn't a lot of substance to their response. But they said, quote, "At this time, I have not heard anything further regarding the Tyler Hero Topps Chrome signing. It is possible that these cards were being used as inserts for this year's release. However, nothing has been confirmed." Well, come July, and then even heading into the National, we were still wondering when we'd see this set. We didn't think it would be an if we saw this set, because we know the cards were produced, so it had to have been, when would we see this set, or will Zion be in this set? Because he hadn't signed an exclusive with anyone at that time. Well, as it turned out, he was involved in some legal stuff regarding his marketing, so I think that had an effect on his announcement too, and I talked about that in episode 23. But eventually he signed with Panini. That didn't necessarily mean, though, that the Topps Chrome draft set wasn't happening. I figured it was still coming in some capacity because we'd seen basketball players in Allen and Ginter before. We'd seen them show up in other places. But we didn't hear, anything about it. We didn't see anything else about it. It's almost like Topps pretended that it never existed. Well, finally, someone got Topps to make some comment on it, albeit months later. Someone asked about it at February's Industry Summit, and then the updates were posted on the Blowout forums. And the poster claimed, quote, "Topps Chrome basketball is DOA from Industry Summit. It's dead. Cards will not be packed out. Licensing concerns." We also heard from another card shop owner that was at the summit, and he reported back that the cards were supposed to be shredded. And that's not the first place I've heard that. So I talked with somebody that collects Tyler Hero cards. He had a pretty good connection with someone that's in the know at Topps. Obviously we're not going to give a bunch of sources away, but he asked about the Hero cards, because he collects them, and he was told they were all shredded. Well, he double checked, like, are you sure that a couple of these maybe don't still exist? Are any of them going to leak out? And this contact reiterated, no. The high-ups oversaw the whole thing to make sure that not one Hero got out. Don't bother saving your money for one. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So unfortunately, we don't have any official quotes from a Topps social media account or anything. But that, looks like this set is completely dead. The cards are not supposed to exist. The cards were shredded in front of a Topps official. That's the story that we've heard. So anyway, then we move back to July of 2020, where I'm standing at a card show, and I've made my first circle, and I am holding a card that's not supposed to exist. A really cool piece of hobby history that, kind of encapsulates some of the chaos of Zion Mania. You guys know, it doesn't matter what player it is. I'm all about stuff like that. So I asked the owner, said, where did you even find this? And he talked me through it. And, apparently he reached out to a player on Instagram at some point, and he asked him for it, and they came to some sort of an agreement. And I don't know. I didn't ask if it was dollars, or, I didn't ask any of that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble here. So, we talked about it, and the next question, of course, was, how much do you want for it? And he said $100. Well, I felt like that was kind of steep for a guy that isn't in the NBA at the moment, even with the subject matter overall. So I maybe a part of that, I also thought I might be able to reach out to that player myself to see, if he had one copy, he might have another one. So for the time being, at that July show, I took a picture of the card. I showed a few of my friends, but I didn't want to talk much about it. I didn't want to jinx anything. And I did a little more shopping at the show, nothing big. But on my way home, I sent the player a message, and he was very nice about it, but he didn't have any more. He said he'd reach out to the company to see if they had more for him, but knowing the circumstances of the set, I knew that they definitely wouldn't. And he didn't know that, and I don't fault him for that. Okay, so that was July, and as the month moved along, of course, I thought about that card quite a bit. And the seller also had it listed on eBay for like $5,000 or best offer. So I messaged him, and I told him, hey, I'm the guy who talked to you at the card show about this. I said, if you change your mind, I'll offer you $50 for it. And, he said, thank you. And that was that. And as of this point, I had struck out. And, July moved forward, and I just kept thinking about how cool it would be to own this card. So when it came time for the August show, I packed up a few of my slabbed LeBrons, once again, in case I saw an Oscar. Mrs. Wax Museum and I jumped in the car, and I told her, I said, our first priority when we get to this show will be to find this table with this Topps Chrome card. And I checked, it was still listed on eBay, so I figured the owner still had it, but I just hoped he would be at the show. I was hoping he had it with him, and I was hoping he'd be willing to sell it. Well, that's a lot of hoping, so I was trying not to get my hopes up. And so we get there, and Mrs. Wax Museum actually spotted the sign for the right table, and we make a beeline there, and the card's there. And, I asked the guy that's manning the booth, I said, hey, can I look at that? And he said, do you know about this card? Yes, I know about this card. He pointed out some of the damage, so I appreciate that. He's very transparent through the whole process. And remember, last time he asked for 100, I countered with 50. This time I said, hey, what do you want for it? And he said $150. And on the inside, I kind of flinched. I didn't show it on the outside. I wasn't trying to be rude. It's his card. I understand that. And before I could even say anything, it dawned on him that I was the same guy that asked about it last month. And he said, you know what? I told you $100 last month. I'd do $100 for it. And I tried to get him to meet me at $75, and he wouldn't. So I reached in my pocket. A little part of me died on the inside. I pulled out a $100 bill, and we made the deal. And looking back, I'm very, very happy with it. Yes, I know I just set the world record for money spent on a Kerwin Roach autograph. You could probably go on ComC right now, and with $100, you could buy every single Kerwin Roach autograph on there. But at the same time, that weekend, I sold a 17th year base card of LeBron James for $75. So I'm just going to look at it as a trade.